Hello everyone, today is October 15th, 2024, and for this topic, this is about a possible, this was somewhat of a third Trump assassination attempt that has happened in California, I have heard, and based on from what we know that this guy was outside of a rally when Trump was announcing his speech. Some guy decided to pull up in a car outside, obviously outside the rally, and have loads of weapons. Not entirely a lot of it. It's basically weapons. Okay, there was more than one weapons that were included, but they apprehended the guy before he can even take action. So, and then another reason is that what is the reason behind all these assassinations? And do I think that some of us actually believe that the very powerful people might actually be behind this? Well, for starters, I think it can. I think it's actually absolutely possible. But then again, this guy, from what I know, he seems like just a regular citizen that had just bought into some of the media's bullshit. Really. I think the first guy from my prediction is that the first guy was initially bought and paid for and was initially just by the very powerful people that control our government. You see, because you got to understand the perspective of this is that when some people hate America, you're hating a country. The country didn't do anything towards you. And how could you hate the government? The government didn't do anything towards you. The government is just a system. It's just a system and how our country runs. The people who run our government are the ones that we should be hating on. It's because they weaponized it. They weaponized the hope of America and the way that it used to be. Now they're trying to repeat the same thing that they've been doing it over for years. But back then they had a reason to. But then now, there's just no reason. Ever since 2006, there's just no need. Just absolutely no need to weaponize democracy or capitalism like that. We really shouldn't. Well, the powerful people shouldn't. But why would they care? As long as they have the power as long as they have the powers in their hands, they can pretty much get away with it, and they will never reveal themselves. They never will. And do I also possibly, and for some of us who also think, is it actually a possibility that a second civil war could happen? From some perspectives, I am going to talk about that still. Some people can have their beliefs about, but Tim Pool talks about civil war a lot. I'll admit, he does talk about civil war, but I actually will believe this, is that he never was the one who mentioned about it the most. He never was. Some people could argue, yeah, he was. I mean, if you could go over his channel and find so many times, but you gotta look at other people's perspective. Why else would they be talking about a civil war? A second possible civil war? I'm just saying, if our world leaders knew a second civil war was on the rise, then do you think they would actually stop what they were doing and stop weaponizing the crap out of both Republicans and Democrats? So that way they don't have to using those parties to brainwash each other into thinking that one side's the bad guys and one side's the good. It's ridiculous because because in reality, some of us are blinded by the real truth of why they do it. Are they intentionally trying to start one? Well, I think they know the outcome of it. They've been mentioned, I bet our politicians mentioned about it before, but guess what? We still influence it if nothing happened. We could talk about it. I've said in my old videos, we could talk about it, but somehow we can never learn from it. We will always repeat the same mistakes. I would say mistakes that we've been doing for years. The first Civil War should not have been repeated. It was a bloody war. It was an actual war in America against its own citizens. And it was all because of politics and slavery and all the other things. That's kind of similar to what's going on in the world right now. Imagine a modern civil war, a second civil war. Imagine that. You would have thought everybody would have gone back together after the first, but no. After all those years and the way we modernize it, there's really something going on, and I feel like they have an agenda they are trying to push. I think they intentionally want one. It's because they know the outcome of it. As long as people are done fighting, then, because you gotta look at it this way, because it's already happening in Hurricane Helene. I think that's the name of it, so correct me if I'm wrong. That during those times, some of you may not believe me, and I'm not expecting you to, I just want you guys to listen. I want some of you to listen. That during the chaos was happening, what do you think our government, like I said in my last preview, did purposely nothing about it? They are purposely doing nothing about it, but they're giving away $750 to people. But what about insurance? That's not going to cover it. What about the land that they lost? What about the house that they lost? Do you think $750 is going to happen? No. House income is like over the roof. It's higher than $750. I mean, you ask your state about that. The state's trying whatever they can, but like I said, I doubt they're doing as much as what the government should be doing by funding through a state. But they don't want to do that. Like, I thought the whole point of winning a campaign is to win over the people. Something's not out. Something's not going up. It's either that they think they could try to cheat by allowing illegal immigrants in, by making them legal as long as they voted. So think of it like this. They're still legal when they vote, but as soon as they're done voting, they're a legal citizen. It still is. They don't have to go through some process of doing it, which I do believe that there is someone of there, and I could be possibly wrong over that. That there is a process for it. As soon as they enter America, they don't have to take citizenship tests, like how we usually give people who want to live in America. You could be a tourist, but you can't live in it. There's a difference between a tourist and there's a difference between being a tourist and like actually wanting to live in America. Being a tourist, you could visit almost anywhere you want in America, but you wouldn't have the money to do it or even have the citizenship to do it if you are European. All is, like I said, all is welcome, but you'll have to go through the process like everybody else is. Sorry. I'm pretty sure it worked long ago, but you have to understand that our government just does not give a shit about. Fortunately, the way that the very powerful people control the government, the way they allowed like bad people to be into our country, and it's not just like immigrants. We've allowed outside like foreign military actually into our country, which we had some reports about Chinese soldiers actually infiltrating in the United States. Anybody heard of that? Not really. Some of us have completely forgot. And that's unbelievable, because why would they do that? I thought the United States had it strong. I thought the United States was so strong with its security. Well, that is true, but it all depends on who runs it. We all know some of us believe that why they allow, like, it's all in a pattern. Biden intentionally allows immigrants in because he claims to say he can fix an economy and everything else, but when there's somehow chaos that's happening, they got to put their money through wars. It's always that. It's always wars. Barack Obama, wars. George Bush, wars. Bill Clinton, wars. Give me a break. The only person I didn't want to start wars was... the only person I didn't want to start wars was Trump. But he actually said if these enemies start doing something, he's going to take matters in his own hands, and that's something that some presidents did not do over the years. I'm not saying Trump is perfect, and he really isn't. He's not a politician, and I can agree to some of those people who say like, well, Trump is like kind of delusional. He's a little confused over politics. He is. He doesn't understand it. And he tries to, and it just doesn't go out so well. It's because he's not a politician. We don't need politicians. We've seen what politicians do. We've seen what Bush can do. We've seen what Barack Obama did. We've seen what Biden did. We've seen what Kamala did. Well, she isn't president yet. But I've already said this before. Trump is going to win the election. Either some of us like it or not. I mean, I don't care who I voted for in office. I wouldn't care if our next president, besides Trump, is Russia, India, transgender, man, woman, doesn't matter. It all depends on what the people chose. But what I don't understand, is that I know this whole video was about a Trump third Trump assassination, but I'm just like getting out the plain obvious and whatnot, and I get sidetracked easily. So about the third Trump assassination, I think it was just a regular guy that actually bought into some of the Democratic media. Because you have to understand, who are they to say, who are some Democrats? You have to understand that some Democrats are good, and there are some Democrats that are bad. Just like Republicans, there are some bad Republicans, and there are some good Republicans. The ones who make themselves look like fools on television are not necessarily the brightest ones. They try to go off script like how Trump did back in like when he was first running an election. But instead, everyone else that did try, nope, failed miserably. Because they knew they couldn't go off script. They know they couldn't be powerful like Trump because they're politicians. They're bought and paid for it. Really. I mean, who are they to say that like Vivek or Ron DeSantis can talk about the truth, about the reality? When in reality, they're so full of shit because they're politicians. And they're Republican, too. They're Republican. They go and say, oh, well, yeah, I mean, I'm with Trump when he said, the elections were right. You don't know that. Some of them don't even know that, and they're just, like, agreeing to like Trump because, oh, man, yeah, that's for Trump. Some of them don't even side with Trump. That's the thing. You got to be careful when some of the Democrats, like, some of the party that you support, because you got to understand that some of them don't really support Trump. Some of them don't. They say they do, so that way they can weaponize his words and twist it into your mouth saying, oh yeah, well, if Trump wanted this, then yeah, that's what Trump would have wanted. And I'm speaking as a Republican, and he runs the he runs the Republican Party, so that way I'm speaking for you. Bullshit. If it's not coming from Trump, if it's not coming those few words from Trump or anyone else, then they don't represent the party whatsoever. Don't try to twist somebody else's words that are part of the same party and claim to say, oh yeah, well, he's going to be the greatest president of all time. He's not the greatest politician president. He's just the greatest businessman. He's the greatest businessman. He's a businessman. He knows how to fix an economy. And I'll give him this. He also knows, how do I say this? And he also knows how to deal with enemies. Politicians couldn't do that. You know what they did instead? You know what Biden in his years doing instead? Sat there and tried to act like they did something to prevent the war in Ukraine. But no, we wanted the war to escalate any further, so that way we can secretly get involved in it. Some could say that we are already in a World War III, and we kind of are. We're in a proxy. It's what they call a proxy. It's where we're funding through one country with all our tech and all our military. Because you think Ukraine would have taken over Russia? Like, would have actually withstanded Russia if it wasn't our support? They've literally admitted that if they didn't keep supporting Russia, they've been saying this for years, that this was the huge lie, that, oh, well, Ukraine's winning. Ukraine's not winning. It wasn't winning at the time. But then watch this. And then later on those few years, they finally admitted, guys, if we don't stop funding Ukraine, then they're just going to keep on. Then they're going to lose. Finally admitting that after all these years, and then they just go back to going like, well, yeah, well, now Ukraine's winning. You know, shit, Ukraine's winning. Because something doesn't add up. It's either we are secretly getting involved by sending troops, and don't worry, we have troops over there. Some people say, but we're not fighting over there, right? Well, how would you know? You wouldn't know. You're not over there fighting. I even said this in my old videos that it may not be true, and I doubt it is, and these are actual volunteers, that there are actual American people dying in Ukraine, and not just regular citizens. These are people that are fighting for Ukraine. And it almost makes me wonder, are some of them even real volunteers, or some of them were even real soldiers? Like mercenaries and whatnot. You know, Blackwater, that was officially part of the United States, that was like run by the United States. Some of us may have forgotten Blackwater, but Blackwater was a private military group, which they call PMC, private military contracts, and they've been around ever since the beginning of the Iraq war. Before the war Iraq even started, they were actually shipped over there in the Iraq. I mean, what are they doing over there? I don't know. I mean, usually, I never understand this, but usually you don't send private military contract people down there unless you want to start some shit. And I think that was intentional. I think we wanted to start shit with a country just because they broke a deal with broke a deal with us. And that's not great for the United States, apparently, because one deal affects all, and that's something that we cannot handle. But you have to understand, we had every other country that we like take advantage of like their resources. So who are they to say that one country could make a difference? Well, I mean, because you know, someone who's like bright-minded could like see the lies through us and whatnot. Sure. Assassination was not a good guy in that moment, and he was the one who broke off that deal. It's because you understand, it's not just the United States that was feeding off resources. It was France, I believe Great Britain, and I think Russia too. Yeah, I think they all went to war in Iraq. And I think support Afghanistan after that. And the war on terror movement during like Barack Obama's time was bullshit because it never ended. Oh, even Osama bin Laden was dead. Don't get me wrong, he was dead, but the war still kept on going. What is the reason for that? Oh, because we can abolish evil. You can't abolish evil. The only way you can abolish evil is becoming evil. Unfortunately, that's the truth of it. Some of us can agree, but hey, you want to fix a crisis in America by taking away all their guns without putting any regulations on it? In reality, you know how you can fix that? You need to introduce socialism. And I'm not saying you should, because socialism equals communism, and I think that's what the movement that they're trying to push. And I think that's slowly trying to become America. I think we are slowly, some of us, I think our federal government wants to slowly introduce themselves into our lives and actually take part of the industries, the pharmacy, whatever you want to name. They want to be part of it. They want to be part of it, like exactly be part of it. So if anything were to go wrong in their own eyes, yeah, they can easily deny it. Even though it was public, but it's government funded, but it's government property. So, I mean, we could say wherever you could go in, but if something were to go wrong, we could always deny it and just say, yeah, sorry, you guys can't get whatever you can get because it's considered dangerous or something happened and we just don't want to deal with that originally. And I think that's the issue, because my brother says that we are in a communist country, which that's not true. That's not true whatsoever. If we were in a communist country, that means the Second Amendment would be gone, the First Amendment would be gone. Might as well forget the Bill of Rights too, because that's officially gone, and all the Constitution is all gone too, which is ridiculous, really. And this video was originally supposed to be about third Trump assassination, and I'm getting sidetracked over this. But like I said, this guy most likely could have been a blinded Democrat supporter originally. And they're just gonna rub it off, saying like, no, he's a pro. I forgot what they call like Republicans. What is it that they call them? It starts with a C. Conservatives. He's a pro-conservative. The anti-gun conservative. The fuck is that? Really? Like, what is a pro-gun conservative? I think that's pro-gun. Is it still Republican Party? I mean, yeah. I don't care, like, which side they try to claim to support. The only party that stands out the most are Democrats and supporters. And don't get me wrong, some people can have their own, thoughts, when they say, that, well, who do you see best if you're not voting on these sides? Are you a Robert F. Kennedy? I will say this, myself, I am not a Robert F. Kennedy, how do I say this? I am not a Robert F. Kennedy supporter. I'm no one's supporter. Because I can clearly see the bullshit. I clearly see the bullshit in all three parties. Even though Robert F. Kennedy say, it's for the way of the people. Yeah, right, dude. Originally, before you endorsed Trump, you were supposed to be at a Democratic, DNC and act like, the Democrats, they're all so great. Yeah, bullshit. Both sides aren't thinking straight. And it's obviously controlled. Really. The only people that they don't like are nationalists, and Trump is a nationalist. He sees things for the people. And that's what Dr. Umar says in his video. So if you look up Dr. Umar, he actually says that if Kamala wins, then there would be a civil war. It's because, let's face it, do I think the election is going to be intervened? I have a feeling that there is. I have a feeling that there actually going to be an election intervened. And you have to understand, and I am going to bring up a second civil war, rebellion, what do you want to call it, but I'm going to mention about this part. If Jamie Ratskin officially stated his point, and he was making it, and he was dead clear about this, and it isn't some scare tactic that some people are claiming to say, like, oh no, it's nothing, guys. That should be investigated. He is a representative, and he is saying that. A representative who is saying that. And you're going to rub it up and say, it's probably just some scare tactic, like trying to get the people going and whatnot. Now, that could be a case. But what if it was actually true? What if they actually did it? Like, what if they actually did? What if they invoked the 16th Amendment onto Trump and pulled Trump out on January 6th? What if they officially did that? What if they said, well, I mean, it could have been prevented sooner, but I guess some people don't. Because you have to understand, that's kind of the mindset of what the government's been doing all these years. But this time, what if this was actually a real plan? And then they know that people wouldn't do anything about it because they're always going to think everything's a scare tactic to try to get the other side going. But trust me, you guys, some of us already going, like already getting motivated to like, oh man, they're like, this idiot's called like the party I support, like dumb and idiotic. I'm going to prove him a point. It's stupid. Like, you guys, all of you are people, all together. It doesn't make any sense. You are all living in America. You are not divided. Like, who are they to say, like, oh, yeah, well, the red and blue states are a divided thing, so anyone's a supporter Democrat is not a supporter of Republican. Doesn't mean you can't get along with either of the parties. It's so ridiculous. Really. It really is. And what when some Democrats are going to say, like, to Republicans, hey, well, they're full of racists. There are some racist supporters, don't give me that, but that doesn't make the person representing America is a racist, that they were trying to put that on them. Now, when they say Kamala's a socialist, I do believe there's actually socialist supporters actually support it. And the Republicans are putting that against her. Like, oh, well, you're supporters. You have, like, supportive ideas. And they try to deny, like, no, we don't know any supportive ideas. No, we don't. No, because in reality, Kamala is not going to be a socialist. Unless she can actually mandatory use this buyback system, which they already got going. But so far, they haven't collected anything. And they haven't collected any guns so far. It wasn't mandatory. It's not like how Australia did it. So if you don't know what a mandatory thing is, it's the it's the gun buyback thing. So you turn in your weapon for cash. That's all it is. Sounds easy, right? But in reality, in Australia, they did things differently. That means when it was a mandatory gun buyback, meaning that you were forcibly to give up your gun for money. You were forcibly to give up your guns. And that's unfortunate, and that is true. I mean, how many citizens do you see in Australia actually owning guns besides law enforcement? You rarely ever see it. It's because they don't have the right to it. Now, I'm not saying we should spread democracy all over the world. No, you let that country influence their own. We should not have to be like fucking hell divers and like influence everywhere we want to go. Because I feel like that's what we've been trying to do with Ukraine. We are trying to switch them over to NATO and expand territory. No. Well, that would be pretty harsh to say if some of us actually agree to the point that it's all for territory. No, it's not. It's not all for territory. It's all for expanding democracy and whatever. Expanding their bullshit just as long, because our whole point is that we need to take over the whole world and like outcompete our enemies and whatnot because we are so powerful. I'll admit, we are a powerful nation. But I think the people who run America and run our government have abused it. So now they are becoming completely socialist dictators as they want to be, as they control our politicians and to try to guilt tripping you and fighting each other and like arguing with each other into endless nonsense about politics, which I think, because politics is going to be the downfall of America. Unfortunately, some of us could agree, like, no, migrants are going to be the reason why we're going to fight each other. Everybody has their reasons. I'm just saying, politicians is also another thing if migrants are also a thing. I'm just saying politics are also another reason why a second civil war is going to be possible. Because if we continue the road that we used to go ever since the 2000s hit, then it's bullshit. then there just wouldn't be any future for America. Because I have a future of being a film animator, and if this is what I have to grow up to, then so be it. But what am I going to do about it? Nothing. Some of us could do something about it, but we didn't want to because some of us think that everything's a scare tactic. Oh, it only worked before, but you got to look at it now. You have to understand that the mindset of these people are not scared anymore. They used to be scared, but if you push them in a corner long enough and act like they can't do anything about it, they will do something about it. And that's unfortunately what's happening in both parties. Both parties are actually so tempting to actually go on and like provoke a civil war with each other. Regular citizens want this. Why would some regular citizens want this? I thought the whole point of like bringing people together is to not invoke violence. Oh, but that's what your politicians agreed to. If violence is good, for the economy. No, it's not. It's not good for the economy. It's only helping the politicians get paid, because they're basically saying, hey, we love getting paid, without telling you we love getting paid, because violence is good and violence helps us gets paid, but we won't tell you we're getting paid because of those reasons. Give me a break. And that's the thing. Do I actually think that a second civil war could happen this year for some of us? For I will keep on saying this? No. I don't think it's going to happen this year. But anything could provoke it. Anything could provoke it. Some even could say that we're already in a cold civil war. I mean, yeah, I could see that. The way whether we're influencing towards each other. But we've been doing it for years. I'm just surprised that it's been happening for years in the early 2000s. That you need to tell me that we finally just announced that, hey, I mean, we're in a cold civil war after all these years. Yeah. I mean, I thought the whole point of a cold civil war is to actually negotiate something. Well, no, not really. That's not what a cold war is. It's basically just spreading lies and provoking one another. All that useless garbage towards one another, so that way one feels superior than the other, spreading influence towards the other. No different than what capitalism versus communism was like during the beginning of the Cold War. It was no different. But I have to say, for some of you, I am going to wrap this video up. But for some of those who decided to stick around and listen, thank you. For some of those who wanted to watch this, and I could say thank you. Some of those. So far, we are over about 200 and I believe 54. 54 views in total. And I'm not asking for subscribers at all. What I am asking for is some of your guys' attention. I'm not forcefully asking you. You don't have to click on this video. You never had to. You never did, but that was your choice if you did. And I want to thank you for some of this, because I am always going to say this. YouTubers wouldn't be famous today if it weren't for the people that are actually influenced watching this. You know, I'm not looking forward to being famous. I'm here to recognize the work that some of you did. And that's exactly what some of you did. Really. But that's all I got to say for this video. So, to wrap this up, stay strong, stay healthy, stay smart, stay curious, all those kinds of things. And I'll make another video depending if something goes wrong, or it all depends on what news are pretty interesting and what went wrong. For this information, or whatever information pops up, But I am going to say this, is that you guys, some of you need to do your own research. Can't just rely on one person, and this includes myself. Can't do that. Can't just agree to everything that I say just because it sounds true. But you got to know some research. I like to be proven wrong. And if it's anything, I like people who have a different opinion than I do. Because, at least in my viewpoint, we can at least work something out even if we don't agree on each other's terms. We don't have to try to argue with each other, trying to make a point over another, trying to act like, oh, one's superior than the other. It's bullcrap. Because then it makes some of you look make some of you look delusional. And act like, oh, I know everything because of the party I support or whatever you support. It's bullshit, because anybody can prove you wrong. Anyone. Doesn't have to be me. But when somebody does prove you wrong, then you are like, really, well, that's not the party that I support told me to, like, be well aware about. Yeah, because they just want you, because some of these parties want you to actually believe in one side. They don't want you to think both. They don't want you to think the wrong. They don't want you to think of the wrong in their own party. They want to mostly think for some of those who want to think that they're the right. I see both sides as wrong and right. So both parties have a very valid points. But the way that I see it, no one's being right at this point. Everybody's just bickering back and forth like they're trying to prove something. In reality, some of them are just doing it because, I'm talking about politicians, of course. Some of these politicians are just doing it because they're just getting paid to do it. They don't necessarily hate each other, but they make the public hate each other, which is ridiculous, really. But other than that, thank you guys for watching, and have a good rest of your day, everyone.